Hello everyone. This is the first session, the first recorded session. In this very first session, we are going to study how to set up the configuration for the connection between the PLC and the PC. This is the photo of the trainer that you have. The PC is S7 1200. This is a PC in the PLC, and the HMI that you have is 7-inch HMI from the Siemens. Here I don't have this trainer, but instead I have another trainer, this trainer that it has the same type of PLC. This is the PLC, the same type. These are some extra cards, that modules that we are not going to use them. So this is the PLC, the same type, and the same type of HMI. So I'm going to explain the configuration and use these trainer desk for all of the programs and programming in this course. Okay. Regarding the setup the connection, let's have a look to this diagram. Here you can see the diagram for the connection between the PC, PLC, and the HMI. To connect them, we need an Ethernet switch. This is the Ethernet switch, one type of Ethernet switch. The type of the Ethernet switch that you have is this one, another type, which is similar to the one that we have here. So this is our Ethernet switch. And for your trainer, it is this one. It is different from the one that is shown here in this figure, but these are just Ethernet switch. That's not important. So the connection between the PC, PLC, and the HMI is through Ethernet switch. All of them, here you see this one from the PC, this is for the PLC from the PLC, and this is from the HMI. All of them are connected to the Ethernet switch. So all of them directly connected to the Ethernet switch, as this is just a hardware connection that we need between the PC, PLC, and the panel to set up the connection between them. But the important part is the software configuration that we are going to use to go through that. In your trainer, the setup, the connection has already been set up, so you don't need to change anything on that. Okay, to set up the configuration, we use the totally integrated automation software from the Siemens, both for configuration and for programming. Here I have the version 14 of that. I run that as administrator. It's because of how it works in my computer. Regarding your computer, it is something that you should check with the IT specialists over there, but I believe that it shouldn't be that much different. Run that as administrator. Okay. Ask a question here that I just click yes, and then here you see that it's starting totally integrated automation. Includes everything that we need for configuration and program. Okay. You can select from any existing project, but let's start a new, create a new project. A project means everything that thing that we are going to set for the configuration and the programming, all of them are under project. Okay, so it's called a project. Includes some files, some information, some configuration. All of them are called a project in the Siemens. So let's start create a new project. Let me call that PLC configuration. Okay. Yeah. PLC configuration, and then let me create that. There's some information regarding the folder, regarding the version, regarding who's creating that. You can also change them if you like. Okay, TIA has two view or two general view structure. One of them is called portal view, which is this one. The other is project view. If you click here you see that a project view just in the left button of the screen, the project view. Let me click on this. Okay, this is the project view. Okay, again here if I click this again, this is portal view, and then switch to the portal view. For some of the steps we use the portal view, for some of the steps the project view. Let's click on the project view and go to the project view. This is where we can both set up the configuration and also do the programming. Everything will appear here. Okay, to start, first we should see which devices are available. Okay, so here you have an icon regarding the accessible devices. Accessible devices. Okay, and then this window pop-ups that you can look for any accessible devices. Here first the type of the PG or PC interface, it is the Profinet IE. So the same, the default is this one. If we are not going to use these two, these are not our interface, and also it is through Ethernet. We are connecting to that through Ethernet. So it is that, and then start search. I have already connected my PC, my lab PC to the switch, so that hardware connection has already been set up. So I just want to see which. Okay, here you see that there are two devices available. One is a Symantec HMI and the other is S7-1200. This is the PLC and this is the HMI. It has already, this device has some device name. This doesn't have any device name, so by automatically the software considered as accessible device, some accessible device. Here you see the MAC address. MAC address is something unique for each device that you have, but and we cannot change that. This is not something that we change. This is the one that we need to configure and change that address, the IP address. So when we have, let's look at this again, then we have a connection between devices through this Ethernet switch. All of them need to have some IP address. So we need to set some IP address for the PC, IP address for the PLC, and IP address for the HMI. In this session, we work on the PC and the PLC. In the next session, we also work on the HMI panel. So all of them should have some IP address. The IP address, every IP address includes four numbers, each number up to 3 digits. Okay. The IP address has two main parts, let's say. The first three numbers from the left side that you can see here, green, in fact are domain, the domain for the connection. And then the last one is the one that you see in red is the device number. So these are the domain number, and this is for the device number. When you are going to connect some devices through the Ethernet, all of them should have the same domain number. Okay, the same domain number. So 192.168.0, for example. But the device number is specific for each of them and should not be the same. So for the device number, they should not be the same, but for the domain number, they should be the same. Domain number or the IP address numbers depends on what you prefer or what IP address is available to you. these are the IP address that we used all through these courses, and these are the IP address that also used by the amateur in their user manuals, and so I use the same IP address. So for PC, this should be the IP address for my PC, this is for the PLC, and this is for the HMI. Okay, so let's start one by one and set the IP address for them. First, from the PC. To set up the IP address for the PC, we should open the network and share it. There are two ways to do that. One of them is here. You can see an icon for the connection, for the internet connection, because I connect to the internet through the wireless, so it looks like a wireless. In your case, it might be as the cable connection. Right click on that and then open network and settings. Okay, you see this window. Okay, the other option, let me just simply close that and then return, is that here you search for the network status. Okay, so I search for the network, and then under the network status, of course this also depends on your Windows version, so don't worry about that, maybe a little bit different, but the general structure is the same. So again, the same Windows pop-ups. Since our connection is going to be through Ethernet, so select the Ethernet connection. Okay, and then when you select the Ethernet connection network, then there are some options. Select these change adapter options. Okay, click on that. When you click on that, then you can see all the connections that are available in your PC. For example, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, maybe some VPN, and the one that we are looking for that is the Ethernet connection. Here you can see Ethernet connection. It might have some names, depend on the drivers and like that, but this is something important for us, Ethernet connection. So select the Ethernet connection, double click on that, this Windows pop-ups, and then click on these properties. Okay, good. Here you see lots of connections. The one that we need to set up is the TCP/IP4. Here you see that Internet Protocol version 4. It is called TCP/IP4. TCP/IP4. Select this one. Please let me just warn you. There's one TCP/IP6 also. Internet Protocol version 6. Do not select this. The TCP/IP4. So select this and then again click on the properties. Here there's not any IP address set for the computer. So here use the following IP address: 192.168.0.10.200. And then click on the sub-disk. Automatically this number appears. If the number is different, set the number as this: 255, 255, 255, and then 0. Then click on OK, and then close. Okay, so you have already set the IP address for your PC. The next step is to set the IP address for the PLC. Okay, this number for the PLC. Okay, this is something that we can do through the TIA. Okay, let me open the TIA. Okay, here. So we reach to this point. Let me cancel and then show you where is that again here. Okay, so accessible device. Click on the accessible device, and then check for these options to be as is mentioned here. Start search, and then okay. So this is the PLC S7 1200. Select that. Okay. Okay, yeah. Select that and then click on this show. Okay, when you select that, then click on this show. Click on the show. It might ask you regarding changing some IP address or submit. Yeah, say yes. It's not important. Then okay. IP address here, see that, oh, okay, let's appear here. Okay, then you see, then the window closes. Here you see under the online access, okay, see there are two branches here, three, let's say, PLC configuration, online access, and card readers, okay. Under the online access, that automatically opens. Under the online access, you have your PLC. Where is the PLC? Oh, it closes. So let me search that again. Okay, let me search that again. Yeah, it's here. Sorry. Oh, yeah, under the Ethernet. Yeah. So let me close that again. Okay. Yeah, under the Ethernet connection. Okay. So in the online access, under the Ethernet connection, here you have that, the accessible device, the PLC. So click on the online diagnostics and diagnostics, and then click on the function, and then reset to, it has some IP address, but okay, but the IP address is different, the domain is quite different from the one that we want. Okay, so we need to change that. To change that, we first need to reset that. We should reset that, let's say delete that IP address, and then set a new one. To delete the IP address, click on this reset to factory setting, okay, and then here select the delete IP, okay, and then click simply on the reset. Yes, do you want to reset? Yes. If the PLC is in the run mode, it may ask you whether to change the mode to stop. Confirm that. Okay. Okay, the IP address has reset. So let's again search for that. Again, here start search, and under this start search, okay, this time again you see the PLC, okay, S71.200, but without any address, because the IP address has already been deleted. So again select that, show, okay, and then again this is the IP, the accessible device, okay, online, double click on the online, and then this time under the function, similarly under the function, this time assign IP address, click on the assign IP address, and then give the IP address that you prefer, 192.168.0.207. For the subnet mask, again, please notice, don't forget 255, 255, 255, and then 0. And then that's all. Just go down and assign the IP address. Drive down and then assign the IP address. So the IP address, this IP address has been assigned to the PLC. Okay. Let's check that. Okay, click here. Again, start search. Okay, you see, this time, that device, the type of the CPU also mentioned, because S7-1200 is the series of the PLC, but the CPU type is this 112, 114. And here you have the address that has already set for that. Okay, let me click here to show that. So here on the online and diagnosis, if you double click, this time you can see that the IP address is the one that you already assigned to that. Okay, so the configuration between the PLC and the PC has ended, but the job is not yet ended, because we need to let's say introduce the PLC to our project, because there might be more than one PLC in the network, and we don't want to use all of them. Okay, so the one that we want to use, of course here we have just one PLC, but we should add this PLC to our project. To do that, under the PLC configuration, okay, this one, add new device. Okay, click on the add new device, and then here there are two options, controller or HMI. Controller means the PLCs. So here, Simatic S7 1200, select this one, okay, and the CPU type. And then you have different CPU types. The one that we are looking for, that is this one, okay, you see, this one. And then click here. This is the one that, the type of the PLC, the model of the CPU that we have. And then click on OK. Okay. Okay. So the CPU appeared here. You can double click on that. Okay. And then see some information on that. One of the information is under the general, under the Ethernet address, you can see the IP address. This IP address is given by the, as default IP address, the same domain, you see 192.168.0, the same domain, but some different number. This number is the default number that is given by the software, the project, but it is not the IP address that we have already set. So change that to 207. Okay, just change that to 207. So for your program, for your own program, the IP address is also 207. Then click here, okay, and then see what's happening. Then start searching. Okay, and this is the PLC, show that. Okay, so this is the same device. So the configuration has set up, but we want to test that. Okay, to test that, let's build a very simple program and download that on the PLC and look at that to see how does it work. Okay, to prepare the program, we will work on the programming in the future sessions in more detail, but under the program blocks, okay, under the PLC, okay, the PLC, under the program blocks, open that, expand that, and then select the main OB1, okay, this one. Double click on that. Here is the environment or the file that you can prepare your program, okay, so you can build your program. A simple program, just here is a contact, I read a contact for that, and then this is for the output. So here is a contact that I give the address input 0.4, okay, this is one of the inputs that is available on this, and this is output, so Q 0.0, for example, okay. Okay, this is a very simple. It reads the input number 4, okay, and depend on the state of that, whether it is 0 or 1, or let's say whether the voltage on the input 4 is 0 volt or 24 volt, which logically means 0 or 1, then the output set to 0 or 1. Very simple program. To download that, we first need to compile that. Okay, so here you see that the compile icon. Click on the compile icon. Okay, compile that. If there's not any error, here you see error 0, so there's not any error on that, then download that. Here is, this is that icon for downloading. Okay, so let's download that. Okay, it asks where to download again. The PLC, okay, this is the same address, the address that you set that. The interfaces, okay. Here there are 3 options. Device with the same address, all compatible devices, or accessible devices. If you select the same address, it just looks for the device with exactly this address. If you select the compatible devices, it's try to find it. Let's say search for any devices from this type. Any devices from this type. Okay, and if you select the accessible devices, any devices that is connected, even the HMI, other type of the PLCs, everything. Okay, so let's just as an example select these accessible devices when we start search. Okay, here you see the PLC and also the HMI and the PLC. But let's change that to, for example, compatible devices to start. Okay, here see just the PLC. HMI is not compatible with that, just the PLC. And of course, the same address, it has the same address as the address that we define in our program, in our project. It was 1, but we changed that to 207. So if you even select with the same address, okay, let's search that, it shows the same. So there are different options for larger scale programs that you have lots of devices, different type of devices, different IP address, maybe the same type but different IP address. So this is very handy. But in our case, that there are just a few devices, just 2 devices, so we can simply select that from the menu. Okay, so this is the device, and then we can click on the load. So that simple program loaded on this device. Please notice that during the loading, it's important that the PLC, you cannot change anything on the PLC if it is in the run mode, if it is running and doing its job. It should be changed to stop mode or switch to stop mode. If it is not in the stop mode, the program asks you for the loading, for changing IP address in any steps. Of course, the PLC is now in the stop mode, so it doesn't ask. Later during the programming, you see that when we try to change the program in the future sessions, sometimes the program is in the stop mode, is in the run mode, and then it asks whether to stop that or not. If it asks, say yes. It's just some information regarding the downloading, and then you can click on the load. If this is enabled, click on the load. If it is not enabled, there are some information here. Maybe there's some error, or there are some selection, like the stop. For example, it asks you whether to change that to the stop mode. When you say yes, then you can load that. Here, there's not any option needed to be selected. There's not any error on that, so simply click on the load. Okay, loading finished. You see, downloading to device completed without error. Okay, then it asks you start modules after downloading to device. It means that do you want the PLC start running to start the program to run the program. In fact, as I mentioned, the PLC has 2 main modes, run mode and stop mode. When you download the program is in the PLC, but it's not running. So if you want to run that, you should select start here, okay, and then click finish. You can set the device on the run mode, not at this point, but later in the program. Right now I select that from here, but I will show you also later how to change the mode of the PLC from the run to stop or stop to run during the programming. Okay, so just here let's start all, and this means that the PLC also switches to the run mode. Okay. This is the setup. We read according to the program, we read the input 4 and send the result to output 0. Here you see the input 4. I have already connected that to the switch. This is a normally open switch. Okay, and the output 0 is connected to this light. So when I push this push button. 20 this connection established. So there's a connection between these two terminals. So 24 volt, the power supply 24 volt. So 24 volt applied to the input number 4. When the input number 4 is 24 volt, the logic of that becomes 1. And that logic 1 sends to the output number 1. So output number 1 becomes 1, the logic of the, output number 0. Output number 0 becomes, the logic of that becomes 1. When the logic of that is 1, 24 volts appear in the output terminal. And this 24 volt is on the light, and so we expect that the light turns on. So let me push, see? Okay. So when I push this, this turns on and off. To look at that in more detail, in the software, there's an option that you can see the state of the variables in the PLC in your PC. So the states of the variable, inputs, outputs, or any other variables in the PLC, you can see them in the, monitor them in the software, in your PC. How? Here you have an icon, monitoring on off, okay? And this is the monitoring option, okay? Click on this monitoring option. Let's say enable that or turn it on. By default it is off. Here you see that the color changes. Green colors means that the logical state is 1, and the blue color means it is 0. So here you can see that this is just the left rail is all the times green. We will look at that in detail later, but this is something like the power. So this is logic 1. But since input 4, and so input 4, you see that the contact is blue. It is blue. It is because the logic of the input 4 is 0. Why? Okay, let me show you here. Before pushing this, this connection is open. So the voltage applied to the input 4 is 0 volt. When the voltage applied to the input is 0 volt, the logic of that is 0, and so here you can see it is blue. Let me push that. When you push that, here you see that it becomes green. Why? Because when you push that, the connection, these two terminals are connected. This is a push button, normally open push button, and so 24 volt appears here. When 24 volts applied to this input, the logic of that becomes 1. Okay, this is hardware. From hardware to software. So reading the input, let's say, reading the input. According to this program, the state of this input or the state of this contact send directly to the output. And so, since this is 1, this also becomes 1. Okay. When the output 0 becomes, the logic of the output 0 is 1, so then 24 volt appears on the terminal. This terminal associated with the this output. We will look at that in detail in future, but just as an introduction. So when the logic of this output becomes 1, 24 volt appears here. When 24 volt appears here, then this 24 volt applied to the light, and the light turns on. So this is how it works. Okay, that's all. This was the we studied how to configure the communication between the PLC and PC and build a very simple program, download that on the PLC and run that. We will work on more programming later, and there are some other options regarding configuration, like the set that in the run mode, stop mode, or something like that, that we will study one by one gradually during this course. Okay, that's all for this lecture.